In this tutorial, we're going to learn what do we do after we've edited a photo in Camera Raw. One quick thing I do want to show you that you will come in handy are these buttons right here that allow you to see the before and after of your edit. So clicking this button on the left, it cycles through different views where you can see the full image of the before and after. You can see that I edited this a little bit. I added a lot of contrast, clarity, and vibrance to it. I dropped the exposure of the clouds so that they have a little bit more definition. If I press it again, it's a split image. Press it one more time, it's the top bottom image, and then the split image top bottom. There are a couple things that we can do with this image. One is save it directly from Camera Raw. So if we click Save Image, it brings up this module with all of our different options for saving. I'm going to run through these quickly right now. We'll dive a little bit more deeper into saving images in the last section of the course on saving, and we'll cover more in depth all of these options. But the main ones you need to know are this first one. Destination. This is where you choose where you want to save it. So you click select folder, say you want to save it to your desktop or wherever, you just select that folder. The next is the naming. It uses a bunch of different options. So you can save it as the document name itself in different ways, all undercase or lowercase, all uppercase. You can use the date as the way you save an image. You can use the serial number of the image. I typically just will use the document name. The next is format. This is important. JPEG is a high quality compressed version of a photo. This is great for sharing online, great for printing for most cases. TIFF is a very, very high quality, very, very large file size. And this is really good for high quality prints. And so you typically only need to do this if someone tells you, oh, I need a TIFF image or a TIFF version of this graphic, or if you're printing it out very large. And then last is a Photoshop file. The Photoshop file is a file that you can use with other Adobe products. So if you want to bring this photo into Adobe Premiere Pro for a video or something like that, you can use it as a Photoshop file or save it as a Photoshop file. But I would just use JPEG. For 99% of your projects, you just want to save it as a JPEG. I'm going to go down to quality. There are different ranges of quality: low, medium, high, maximum. High is going to create a nice, sharp, clear image. Max is the perfect image, so you can kind of choose what you want. The higher the quality, the bigger the file size, so you have to be aware of that. Sometimes when you're uploading photos online, there's a file size limit. So you can either kind of guess and try to figure out how big the file is going to be, or you can just click this limit file size button too and just type in the file size limit. When you limit the file size to a certain amount of kilobytes, which is what this is, then Photoshop will save it at the maximum quality up to that file size. So that's kind of cool if you have that file size limit that you need to get your photo under. Say you're sending it via email and you can only attach a certain size of a photo. This is what that is good for. I typically just leave the quality at 9 or 10, and then I'm more aware of what image sizing is. Leave color space as Adobe RGB, 8 bits, that's what we are editing this photo in. And then with image sizing, if this is unchecked, it's just going to save the image how you shot it. So for this image, the default is 12.4 megapixels, and the size is 4071 pixels wide by 3053 pixels tall. Below you have your resolution, which is something we talked about earlier in the class, where 72 is great for online viewing. For printing, I would use 150 to 300. These are the pixels per inch, so the more pixels, the more detailed it will be. If you're saving this for showing online, for your website, for a specific social media site, sometimes there's limits, and sometimes you just want the photo to be a little bit smaller. So when I'm creating a blog image or putting up photos on my websites, I don't want them to be 4,000 pixels. Those would be big files that take long for people to load if they have slow internet. And so I want to limit the image width to 1,000 pixels. Now you got to be aware of what this width and height and then what the resize to fit options means. Right now it's telling me that it's going to save it as 1000 by 750 pixels. So this is the limit for the width and this is the limit for the height. If I just do limit for the short side, what happens is it will have the short side be 1000 pixels and the long side will be however much it is to fit the aspect ratio of that image. With this image, the short side is the height. And so the short side will be 1000 pixels, but the long side will be larger, 1333. I usually just leave this as width and height and then adjust the width to whatever pixel width I want it to be. It's good to check this don't enlarge button if you're not sure what the original size of your image is, which you can look at in your documents or Finder when you inspect that element. But it's also a good thing just to click just in case, because you don't want to enlarge an image, and if you do, it will make it blurry. But since the image that we're editing here is a lot bigger than that 1000 by 1000, which you can see again by unchecking the resize to fit, they're a little bit shaded, but you see it's 4000 by 3000 around there. It's not going to enlarge it. So I'm just going to leave this at 1000. You have output sharpening right here, which will sharpen the image for screen, for printing on glossy paper or matte paper. I would use this sometimes if I'm saving a picture for printing, but I usually don't do it for the screen. I'll adjust my sharpening in the actual settings over here before. And then once you're happy with your settings, just click save. If you go to the place where you saved it, go to my desktop, I now have my castle image. It's 1000 pixels wide by 750 pixels tall. It's a JPEG image. If I open it up, it will open up in preview, and there is my high quality image. The file size is very small, very easy to use, 362 kilobytes. After you save it, it goes back to the Camera Raw editor. Another thing you can do is open this image in Photoshop. So if I just click open image, it's going to open that actual image in Photoshop. If I had clicked done, then it would close it. It would leave Photoshop open, but then that Camera Raw editor would close. Now I have this in Photoshop and I can do any sorts of other edits right within Photoshop that I want. Maybe I want to add graphics, text, shapes, anything like that, or use some of the other tools around here that we'll learn a lot more about in the future, like selection, dodge, burn, clone, healing, all those other things, if you didn't do those things in the Camera Raw editor. Wowee zowie, this was a huge lesson. The past few lessons have been very, very full of all kinds of things, very heavy, so I hope you've enjoyed them. Now I think it's time for me to take a little bit of a break from recording and for you to take a break and practice editing on your own. So go through some of those images that I added to the folder and play around with them, and then play around with those export settings as well. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next lesson.